We're at Wallaby World.
This hatch has to go. It doesn't belong in a cockpit.
A heat gun and a scraper can save you a lot of time.
It's been raining for more than a week now, every single day. We've been pretty busy with David making those seats and reinforcing the transom of the dinghy. We did that the other day.
Yep, that was great.
And we've been really busy. We purchased a new computer with our PayPal and Patreon funds because we really were struggling with our old MacBooks, our 8-year-old MacBooks. So that's been great, but it's been a big learning curve for us. So we've been spending a lot of time in front of the computer, learning how to use a new editing software, DaVinci Resolve, which we really love, but yeah, it's just learning a new program. It takes time. It has been raining for 9 days, so it's been a little bit of a blessing for us, because had we been able to get space on the hard to pull the boat out, I don't know how much work we would have been able to do.
We'd be paying $70 a day and we'd be looking out and I'd be gnashing my teeth. I guess for some of it we could have set up big tarps and everything else like that, but it's never ideal.
Yeah.
Like you want...
Trying to do boat painting and stuff in the rain doesn't set. It
Well,
happened in Darwin.
Yeah, you can't. Like there's a limit to the humidity that you're going to successfully be able to paint with. There's a big community of wallabies that are up here. So
Oh yeah.
we'll see if they're just loitering around on the oval.
We're at Wallaby World.
We're not pulling Marul out of the water. There's just no vacancy, but there's still some things that we can do in water. And I'll just show you a couple of things that I was a bit concerned about, and I have been for a while. A little bit of a tight squeeze. This hatch that's been put in here, you can see that the hole was cut out, and well, I don't know, maybe there was another hatch there before or whatever, but it was a pretty ill-conceived job. Okay. If we look up here, there was a hatch there, and this hatch here, and here's the backside of the Morse cable, the throttle and gear control, and it's just been sort of stuck straight in the wood and maybe a little bit of Sikaflex, but it really is a terrible job. Okay, so all of those items, to no one's surprise, has in heavy weather let water get into this area inside the boat, and also unsurprisingly we can look down here and we can see the ravages of seawater getting into the boat. To that end, this hatch has to go. Alright, this wiring runs not too bad, but there is some other wiring in here that needs to be just gone. Right, it's old, it doesn't need to be there. And you can see up there that goes into the lazarette. I'm actually going to put some hatches so I can access that a lot more easily. There's one hatch at the moment, but I want them to be watertight and dog down. So if you're going along and you're inspecting a new boat, if you see that the previous owners just sort of stuck hatches into the cockpit, stuck hatches out there where they might leak, that's not a deal sinker, but I would definitely be... It definitely should cost them $1,000 off the price, right? Because they should be gone, unless they are really good quality hatches. Because you just can't let seawater get inside your boat. That salt, if it doesn't sink your boat, what it is going to do is carry salt in, and it's just not acceptable. So yeah, this is my first boat, and when I saw this, when I actually got this boat, this whole bed area had been blocked off by a little sort of cupboard here where I'm laying, and I guess the previous owners had put these hatches in so they could access stuff in here. But I don't understand why, but it's led to some evil things happening here in the starboard quarter berth. Alright, so we've pulled all the screws out of the hatch. Let's have a little bit of a look at what she was and why it was leaking. Alright, so we've pulled our hatch out, and I mean it's a fairly tough old hatch, this one, but it doesn't belong in a cockpit, you know what I mean? It's like every time we get inundated with water, and a cockpit's sort of built for that, you know, like if a wave comes in you need to have your boat waterproof. So these sort of hatches, then it's just not going to cut it. If I want to repair this hole and use the minimum of glass, what I'm going to need to do is go and get some plywood, alright, and stick it in here to make up the gaps. I don't have that here, but that doesn't mean I can't, you know, make some forward progress. What I'm going to do is I've got an orbital sander there, and everywhere that I'm going to want to glass, I need to take back whatever paint, I need to get back to the parent glass there, or at least some nice clean resin, wash it down with acetone, and then I'll be ready to fiberglass once I have that plywood. Now that I have this great big hole in this boat, you can tell when Pascal's not around because everything goes to hell, doesn't it? I've pulled everything out of every locker and it's just everywhere. But back to what I was just saying, I've got a big hole in the side of the boat, and if I just take to it with a power sander right now, of course, all the dust is going to go straight into that quarter berth and I'm going to have to clean it up. So, out of one of the shipyard bins, well not the shipyard, one of the trawler bins, it looks like they've gone and got themselves a nice buffet for the trawler. And then I can actually just fill in any gaps with the hot glue, just like that. Too easy. And that's fairly strong now. So I'm just going to just prep this area here. I'll be able to just put a bit of hot glue on there and put the timber in place, and it'll be pretty flush. And then it'll be a case of putting in the bog and glassing it over. If the paintwork starts to go off, you might be tempted just to leave it, but I would recommend chasing it. Okay, just keep going until it stops flaking off. I know it's going to make a bigger job, but you may as well. All right, now you're having a go at it. Don't be tempted to leave it, because we can see we've got this rotten wood here. Okay, that's going to get addressed. But look, we've found another bit here. So it's sort of crept along under here where there's damages, and it's there. So that sounds pretty good. Hollow. That sounds good. That doesn't sound good. I really like having an open-ended and a ratcheted spanner all in one. These ones, you know, you have this little switch and you can get the angle that you want, and then slide the locking thing into place and it's locked there. That's a nice feature to look for. And while we're talking spanners, you're going to need a 13mm, a 12mm and a 10mm a lot of the time. So don't let anyone borrow them and never give them back, and it probably pays to have a few spares. I know on some boats also, when you're bleeding your fuel lines on your diesel, there'll be a set of spanners that you require for that. Some people will paint those up because they're in the engine bay, so you know that they belong in the engine bay, and they'll leave them there next to the engine, because sometimes when you want to bleed that diesel and get it started, you want to do it in a hurry and you don't want to be digging around for tools. So that's just one other little tip that I would give that you might not see somewhere else. Find out what spanners you need for bleeding your diesel, and find a spot in the engine room where you can securely stow them there, alright? And don't take them out of there. Hopefully I'm not teaching too many people to suck eggs on this one, but if you have to knock a bolt out of something like that, what we're looking at up here, it really pays to put the nut back on the end of it, okay, as a surface that you can tap against. Ideally you want a soft-faced hammer, but you would still be doing this to increase the surface area. So you put the nut on the end of the bolt, And this, like I say, this is for newcomers to this stuff. There's plenty of people watching this starting to yawn, I guess. But throw that nut on the end there and you'll have something to hit against. I'm ashamed to admit, haven't had a soft-faced hammer for about 8 months. So I do have this old carpenter's hammer which I'm getting by with. So I'll have a bit of a tap with that, but you know, just gently is the way to go. Go ahead and whack it. Okay, so we've done a little bit of evil there with a hammer, but those threads are still in good condition. Okay, we've done a fair bit of the prep work, and now I'm just going to get the sander out and start hitting it up. And that's a really good point that I'd like to make. It's worth having an inverter on your boat if you think you might be doing a bit of work as you're going along. Now, we didn't have any space to be pulled out on the slipway, so we don't have access to shore power electricity, but I can still use, well, not welders, but I can still use all the other tools that I have on board that run on 240 volt. You know, as long as they're only going to draw 10 amps or so. I've got a 450 amp hour battery bank. That's lead acid battery, so practically it's about a 225 usable amp hour battery bank. And because we're not living aboard, the sun is well and truly keeping up with the demand. You know, we're not running all the other things. So yeah, I think a pure sine wave inverter, so you can run your computers and stuff off it, is a really great investment, and I would go with it. Another really good investment is breathing protection. Okay, it's not a big investment, but it will save you a lot of money in the long run. Easy to overlook. One of the handier tools you can have on your boat, for measuring anyway, is a vernier. Alright, with this one we're going to use this little depth gauge. If you ever had a vernier and you're mucking around with it, you're wondering, oh, what's that little thing at the back? That's what it's for, measuring the depths of things. So we'll just use that. It looks like 3/4 inch ply, but we'll just measure it. 18 mil. I know I swap between metric and imperial, it's just a bug. $18mm plywood. So I'll actually probably get a little bit slimmer than that, and I'll make up the difference with glass, so it's nice and strong.
So we're going to strip off the old varnish, sand back this weather damaged wood and re-varnish it. So rather than just hit it straight away with sandpaper, back in my old boat maintenance days, our head maintenance guy used to like us to just hit it with a heat gun first, mildly, okay, with a bit of care, and just bubble the varnish, then you can scrape it up, and it saves on the cleanup in the end. Any way you do this is going to be messy, but we just found, and particularly if we were working all over a large ship, cleanup was a big deal. So if we could save any sort of work, we tried to. So there you go. Progress in the world is made by lazy people. Shall we?
Able assistant is going to plug in the heat gun.
Thank you, David. Oh.
That is pretty bad.
Sorry.
A bit below the bar.
So if you haven't seen it before, a heat gun and a scraper can save you a lot of time. To sand that would have been a bit of time and then a bit of cleanup, but you know, a heat gun will strip varnish off really well, and you won't have to really get in there. And this is really soft wood, probably just cheap old plywood. With the heat gun, I don't have to, because look, if I didn't do it, I'd really have to hit it with a scraper, and it's not a good look. A bit of heat and just off she comes, and I'm not going to have a lot of scars on the timber that I'm going to have to spend hours sanding.
Rightio, well I've cut out a nice bit of ply and I just used the old hatch as a template. Okay, doesn't need to be particularly neat because it's going to be hidden by glass. So that just needs to be sealed with a bit of epoxy and put in place. What we can see now, this board that's here, I'll give that a bit of a clean up, but now I can just put a little bit of that hot glue on this template, put it in, and it's not going to fall into the boat. So it's done double duty there. Alright, it's stopped all of that stuff from getting into our nice little boat there, making us all itchy sometime in the future. But it's also gives us a backing where we can put that. I'll glue it in place, fill in these with epoxy, and then like I say, I'll put a number of layers of glass over, and that will be a really, it'll be a strong patch. And most importantly, it won't let water in the boat, so that's one more leak that will be dealt with. Wash down with a bit of acetone first. So the main thing that we're trying to do here is really get into those gaps. This is not fairing, okay, this is just getting this filler right in the gaps between everything. And we are looking to get rid of that step, obviously, so the glass has something, you know, nice to go up, like a bit of a ramp. But this is not the fairing stage.
Had a beautiful couple of days of weather.
Yep.
Now it's not.
So we are taking the sails back to the boat and we're going to clean it up and get it ready to put our things back inside off from the house. That's pretty much it.
No matter what's going on, rain or shine, there's always something to do, isn't there? We can always like, sort of move forward.
Yeah. That's a pretty sweet ride you got there.
It's good, doesn't it?
How do you feel about our new dinghy? New looking dinghy.
You're looking dingy.
She looks pretty neat.
Looks a lot less scabby.
New white ropes, new flotation, new seats.
Okay, we're going to go put that headsail back into the furling unit. Normally what happens is as someone's hauling it up, you've got to feed it into the slot. We've actually got this little roller here. So the sail gets trapped in behind here, the actual bolt rope, and this feeds it in and helps out a lot. So we'll just go and secure that, and then we'll secure all the lines to it, and we'll put that sail up, put it away. There's not too much wind at the moment, so
It's good.
yeah, we should be able to get it done.
And because those shackles are going all the way up there,
Yes, we are going to mouse them.
this lower one I won't mouse, alright, because I'll always be looking at it. It's down here, but I will make sure it's nice and tight.
Yeah, give that shackle pin a good tighten.
Yeah, I've moused these, like oftentimes I'll mouse with stainless steel wire. I haven't moused these ones like that, just in case something happens and you know we need to get up there and drop, like if all this fouled or something and I had to get up and the only way to get it was sort of cutting these, you know, I don't want to be dealing with wire, I just want to be able to quickly just go through a zippy tie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, that's enough to hold it because you know you don't have massive forces trying to turn the pin. All the forces are just trying to pull the pin through the cheeks of the shackle. So it's absolutely fine. I've done it for years. You don't need to go all out sometimes with your mousing. When you're mousing an anchor, I definitely always use wire to do that. Okay, so we've got Pascal to tie on the sheets. Alright. And now, just here on the bolt rope, I put our little gadget, and that's just going to hold this close to the furler foil as we pull it up. It's just like having another hand, really. You put it on first and secure it in place. If we can get this done before the rain starts, what do you reckon, Pascal?
Oh yeah, let's go. Slow and steady, Joe.
Pretty unlikely, isn't it? So there's these grooves here. All right, and that's all that holds these sails on. They're not hanked on, okay? Because it's a big foil. You'd need massive hanks to do it. This is going in there. Pick a slot. And now I can just make sure that this lead's all right. And you can see this thing is just
Oh yeah.
leading it in really
Yeah, really
easily.
nice.
Oh, well, there we go. She's a functional sailboat again.
Time to get a cleaning.
Get our clean on.
She's a mouldy boat.
It's not as bad as it has been. Come, let's go.
Alright, the weather's just a little bit too wet for me to continue doing my glassing out there. And another thing that I wanted to do was just replace my exhaust hose. Now it was one complete run that just went from the exhaust pipe and out to the lift chamber. But I just want to put an elbow in there, nice stainless elbow, and just make a nice redirection, and then I'll be able to support the hose along its length. No big deal. If you're new to dealing with metal fittings and also hose and fittings, just a few things, a couple of little hints that might help your life along. Thread tape. Okay, this is just a type of Teflon tape, and I've seen quite a few people when they're putting fittings together just wrap these wrap threads up with it, hoping to seal them. What it's really doing, because it's Teflon and it lubricates those threads a fair bit, when you put it on, it just means that as you're tightening it, you can just get a little bit further in there and really snug the threads home a bit more than you would if they were bare. Also with stainless fittings, it prevents galling, and galling is when stainless steel grabs really small microscopic particles of steel off the mating faces, and the heat that's generated as you're turning it in a very small confined space actually welds the steel together to some degree. So thread tape actually prevents that. When you're putting the tape on, there is a right way to put it on and a wrong way. If you just put your thumb on there and just turn it clockwise, righty-tighty, how you would screw it in, that gives you some idea of which way the tape should go. Okay? So if I turn it like that, my thumb wants to go that way, I want to put the tape that way. None of it's rocket science, isn't it? But if you haven't seen it before, it's probably just good info to know. So there we go. One. And I'm just going to go down a couple of threads, down like that. And that is it. Okay? Give it a nice push. And that's what it should look like. Again, not just loads and loads and loads hoping that this stuff is going to give me a good seal. Let's have a look. I've already put a bit of hose on this one, but I want to show you one more thing when it comes to hose. That feels nice and smooth as it's going in. And like I said, preventing galling is a big deal, in case I ever want to get this undone again. If you don't know what I'm talking about, galling, if you've never heard of it, it's probably worth Googling. Galling in 316 stainless steel. Alright, that's pretty tight already. After I finish talking to you, I will be just putting that in a more secure, like in a vise, and just giving that just one more nip up. But that should be fine with that tape in there like that. Now the second bit is I'm going to put a bit of hose on this other side, obviously, and later on I'll be cutting it. But I just want to talk about when you're putting this, and this is some nice expensive Lloyd's approved marine hose, alright? And when I say expensive, I'm talking $108 for 1.2 metres. But it's worth it because my boat won't sink, alright? So it is wet exhaust gas hose, and that's important in your exhaust system. even though this stuff, it shouldn't be dealing with, in the normal run of things, it's coming out of a wet exhaust, so it shouldn't really have to deal with hot exhaust gases that much. It should be pretty wet, pretty cool. But what if something goes wrong? So it wants to be able to resist that temperature for a certain amount of time until you realise, oh, hang on, there's no water coming through my engine. Because the water that's supplied in the wet exhaust is coming via the cooling water pump. It's going through the engine, doing its cooling job, coming up, and then being actually injected into the exhaust line. So if that pump fails, we could have some hot exhaust here working through this hose, and then you've got a hole in the hose, you've got a hole in the boat. Anyway, enough about how much I pay for my hose, skiting away. If you went and just wanted to just sort of stick it in there, it's rubber on steel, it really grabs. So, yet another use for the old Morning Fresh, and when I say another use, we use this because it lathers in seawater. So does a lot of shampoos actually. Just a little dab will do you. Just chuck it on the inside there, give it a nice wipe around. Okay, I've got plenty of spooge all over me now. And on that, and that will act as a lubricant to put that on. Before you put it on, you want to get your nice expensive T-clamp hose clamps. Alright, these ones that have a screw to bring it together. They're the ones I like to use on exhaust. Maybe check the legal requirements. Maybe you have to on commercial vessels. These are what you have to use on exhaust lines. On yachts you can get away with more, but if you can't, for a very long time on fishing boats, and it's probably still the case, 2 hose clamps on there, okay? If you've got the screw type ones, double them up. If you can't, if you don't have the good T-clamps, this one I'm not going to use just because it's second hand and I've got a bright new shiny stainless steel one, but if you can't get those, double up your clamps. Alright. And when you put any clamps on, just think about sometime in the future. Here we're out in the open, it's really easy to access them. But just have a look at where it's fitted. Sometime in the future you may have to get these off, and it's a tough job already. So just think about your access, which angle you're going to be able to get tools to and stuff like that. Just always think about your future self and give yourself a bit of self-care just by making things easier. So if you're going to put those clamps on, access from the same direction is always nice, and always plenty of clear working space if you can. I know it's a boat, it's pretty rare that can happen. But I'm just going to stick this on because I've got a free end to just put the clamp rather than tear off and edit this video some more. So, oh look at that, it just slides right in there, he says as he grits his teeth and strains. But look, that's in. And if you've ever wrestled with rubber hose, you'll know that was actually quite easy. So, another use for your dishwashing liquid. So I've got my other T-clamp on there. Access from the same direction, I've looked, and that will be in the future when it's in place. That will be the open spot. And T-clamps are great because you're not using a screwdriver, you're using a spanner. You can really get a great grip, good surface area. If you look at this second hand one, you can see, it's got this sleeve in here, and all round, and it really gives you a great firm grip. If you are going to go for screw clamps, sometimes you'll see that they'll have a little shield around here and all you've got is the slot. I do prefer the ones that have a hex head as well, so you can get a small spanner on there. That'll probably be about an 8mm. You can go overboard. Alright, these little things here, if you really wrench on that, you can snap those out and they'll go back to the next one, and they can actually loosen on you, and that's why these T-clamps are so much better. But like I said, you can double them up. Magnets. This little handy light pen that I've got has a fairly weak magnet there and a pretty good magnet there. When you're going off and you're spending all your hard-earned money on marine fittings, you're going to want 316 fittings. Okay. Now 316 is non-magnetic. Okay. Stick a magnet on, nothing. All right. Often with your T-clamps though, you'll feel, well, this is a good quality one. Look at that. No magnetism whatsoever. Beautiful. Let's have a look at this one. Okay, none. Alright, Trident I'd say these are. Yeah, Trident. Good quality clamp. This one. Excellent. All of it. So this particular T-clamps here, what I've seen is that this is all 316 here, not non-magnetic, but the actual bolt itself is slightly magnetic, and that's probably because it's 304 stainless steel. 304 is slightly magnetic. The reason for that, I would say, is again to prevent that galling that I spoke about earlier. You've used two different grades of stainless steel. It's much less likely for them to bind and jam, so you can't undo that again. So that's what you might find. If you're going to take a magnet to your marine store, check your quality of your 316. Yep, that's pretty good. Oh, hang on. It is, like in some T-clamps, they will do that. They'll put 304 bolts in there. Something else. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that quality. There's my spanners. So there we go. Not stainless, is it? Looks stainless, but not. What have we got? We've bled everything. We've got the new exhaust. We've got the new fuel pump, and now is the moment of truth. So let's check it out. Here's my alarms working correctly. I was just checking for leaks, and I had my rag in there. I was just putting it around. Just be really careful that you know where the tail of your rag is, and preferably not do it at all. Like have it nice and short if you're checking for leaks or wiping anything away and having a look. If the end of that was to catch into a belt and maybe wrap around your hand, you can cause yourself a fair bit of mayhem and damage. This little 16 horsepower engine, you'd probably have a hard time doing that, but some of the powerful engines, especially if they're operating at operating revs, happen before you know it, and they will tear an arm off. So something to be careful of. Probably bad practice on my part. Okay, now while Marul's at anchor, I've shut down the engine. So I'm going to, just because I've done a repair on the fuel system, I'm also just going to shut down the fuel lever, and I'm also going to shut off the water going to it. There we go. So if there's some sort of hose failure or something like that, my boat won't sink. Normally I don't do that when I'm on board, because I can monitor things, but if I'm going to leave her here and I don't get back tomorrow, that's the least I can do for her. So that's pretty much it. The bilge pump is good and operational. The bilges are dry at the moment. I've turned off all the seacocks, letting water come on in. The bilge outlet is far above the waterline, so I feel fairly confident. Marul's hasn't sunk yet. So we're pretty happy. Alright, I might pack up and go and see my delightful girlfriend. Alright, well that's the hole. The timber's in, put some bog in, 2 layers of glass and epoxy over the top. So that's all nicely set. So I just gave it a quick sanding with 120 grit and a wipe down with Metha, and I'm going to give it another wipe down so it's absolutely dust free. And then I'm just going to put some thickened epoxy over just to fair it off so it's level with the rest of it. And then we should be able to paint it, and you'll never know that there was a horrible great hole in our boat. And I guess that's the joy of fiberglass, isn't it? It's really easy to modify, and steel is easy to modify as well if you're a competent welder, but if you can paint and you can fill a hole, you can fiberglass. It's well within most people's reach to do a bit of basic fiberglass repair.
Thank you for tuning into Free Range Sailing. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, as it really helps get our video out to more viewers. Also, we'd love to hear your feedback and questions, so head on over to the comments section and drop us a line.